The gentle morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the Chen family's suburban home in Minnesota. Inside, 10-year-old Maya stood in front of her mirror, carefully adjusting her favorite blue hair clips. She had picked them out specially for her first day of 5th grade, along with her new backpack covered in colorful butterflies. Her mom always said butterflies were a sign of transformation and good luck, and Maya believed she would need both today. The smell of her mother's home-cooked breakfast wafted up from the kitchen. A mix of traditional Chinese congee and American-style bacon that perfectly represented their family's blend of cultures. Maya breathed in deeply, letting the familiar scents calm her first-day jitters. As she made her way downstairs, she could hear her parents talking in their usual mix of English and Chinese, a melody of languages that had been the soundtrack to her childhood. "Good morning, sweetheart," her father called out, looking up from his medical journal. Dr. Chen had been a respected pediatrician in China before moving to America, and he'd worked incredibly hard to rebuild his career here. He always told Maya that anything was possible with dedication and perseverance. Her mother, busy at the stove, turned around with a warm smile that could brighten even the cloudiest Minnesota day. "Did you pack everything for your first day?" her mother asked, setting down a steaming bowl of congee. Maya nodded enthusiastically, patting her butterfly backpack. Inside were her new notebooks, each one decorated with careful drawings she'd spent the weekend creating. Maya loved art. It was the one place where she felt she could truly express herself without words getting in the way. The kitchen table was their family's special place. Every morning, they'd gathered here, sharing stories and dreams while enjoying their breakfast. Today, Maya's mother had made her favorite combination, congee with century eggs, alongside crispy bacon and fresh fruit. It was different from what her classmates usually had for breakfast, but Maya loved it. It was uniquely theirs, just like their family. "Remember what I always say," her father said, giving her an encouraging look over his coffee cup. "Being different is not a weakness. It's a superpower." Maya finished with a giggle. It was their special motto, one that had helped her through many uncertain moments. The drive to school was filled with Maya's excited chatter about seeing her friends again. She'd spent most of the summer at Chinese language school and art camp, and she couldn't wait to share her new drawings with everyone. Her neighborhood friends had always been kind to her, even if she was the only Asian student in most of her classes. As they pulled up to Pine Valley Elementary, Maya watched other families arriving. She saw kids hugging their parents goodbye, friends reuniting with excited squeals, and teachers welcoming everyone with bright smiles. The morning sun made the red brick building look warm and inviting, like a big friendly giant waiting to give everyone a hug. "Have a wonderful day, my butterfly," her mother said, giving her a quick kiss on the forehead. Maya hugged both her parents tightly, breathing in her mother's familiar jasmine perfume and her father's clean doctor smell. These little details always made her feel safe and loved. Walking into her new classroom, Maya felt a mix of excitement and nervousness flutter in her stomach, just like the butterflies on her backpack. Her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, greeted her with a kind smile that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. The classroom walls were covered with colorful posters about science, history, and art, all of Maya's favorite subjects. Maya found her assigned seat near the window, where she could see the big oak tree in the schoolyard. She carefully arranged her notebooks and pencils on her desk, making sure everything was just right. As other students filed in, some faces familiar and some new, Maya felt hopeful. This was going to be her year to shine. During morning introductions, Maya shared her summer experiences with confidence. She told the class about learning Chinese calligraphy and how she'd won first place in the art camp's final exhibition. Some kids looked impressed, especially when she mentioned that she could write their names in Chinese characters. At recess, Maya sat under the oak tree with the sketchbook, drawing the clouds that drifted overhead. A few of her old friends joined her, asking to see her drawings. They oohed and awed over her detailed sketches, and Maya felt a warm glow of pride. She loved sharing her art with others. It was like sharing a piece of her heart. In the afternoon, during their first art class of the year, Maya's talent caught everyone's attention. Their assignment was to draw their favorite summer memory, and Maya's detailed illustration of a traditional Chinese dragon dance she'd seen at a festival stood out. Mrs. Anderson praised her use of colors and attention to detail, making Maya beam with pride. Back at home that evening, Maya excitedly shared every detail of her day with her parents over dinner. They had made her favorite dumplings to celebrate her first day, and the kitchen was warm with the smell of jinga and scallions. Her mother listened intently while folding dumplings, nodding and asking questions, while her father occasionally chimed in with funny stories from his own school days in China. "You know," her mother said thoughtfully, placing a perfectly folded dumpling on the bamboo steamer, "when I first came to America, I was scared because everything was so different. But then I realized that being different meant I had something special to share with others." Maya nodded, understanding exactly what her mother meant. She thought about her art, her ability to write in Chinese, and all the unique stories and traditions her family had shared with her. These things made her who she was, and today she'd seen how these differences could bring people together rather than push them apart. As she got ready for bed that night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror again. She saw her dark eyes, straight black hair, and golden skin, features that connected her to generations of family history. She thought about her father's words, "Being different is a superpower." Today, she had felt that power in the way she could share her art and culture with her classmates. Maya fell asleep that night with a smile on her face, her butterfly backpack ready for another day of adventures, not knowing that the coming years would test her strength and resilience in ways she couldn't imagine. But for now, she was simply a young girl proud of who she was, dreaming of all the possibilities that lay ahead. Under the soft glow of her night light, Maya's art supplies lay neatly arranged on her desk, ready for tomorrow's creations. Her mother's jasmine perfume still lingered in the air from their goodnight hug, and the distant sound of her parents' quiet conversation downstairs made her feel safe and loved. It was the perfect end to a perfect first day, and Maya couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. 3 years had passed since Maya's optimistic first day of 5th grade, and everything had changed. The hallways of Pine Valley Middle School felt different now, colder somehow, despite the warm September air drifting through the windows. Maya clutched her textbooks closer to her chest as she walked to her locker, trying to make herself as small as possible. The trouble had started gradually, so slowly that at first, Maya hadn't even noticed it happening. It began with whispers and stares from a group of girls led by Ashley Thompson, the most popular 8th grader in school. Ashley, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes, had never said anything directly to Maya at first. Instead, it was the little things, the way she would wrinkle her nose when Maya walked past, or how she would suddenly stop talking when Maya entered the cafeteria. That morning, Maya carefully arranged her books in her locker, making sure to grab everything she needed for her first few classes. She didn't want to come back between periods. That's when the hallways were most crowded, and crowded hallways meant more opportunities for Ashley and her friends to accidentally bump into her or make loud comments about her appearance. In history class, Maya sat in her usual spot near the front. She liked being close to the teacher. It made her feel safer somehow. As other students filed in, she heard the familiar giggling behind her. Ashley and her 2 closest friends, Brittany and Katie, were whispering and pointing at their phones. "Oh my gosh, look at this filter," Ashley said loudly enough for Maya to hear. "It makes your eyes all squinty. You look just like—" More giggles followed, and Maya felt her cheeks burn. She focused intently on her textbook, pretending to be absorbed in reading about the American Revolution. Her hand trembled slightly as she turned the page. The teacher started the lesson, and Maya tried to lose herself in the familiar comfort of learning. She had always been a good student, consistently earning top grades in all her classes, but lately even this had become another target for ridicule. Teacher's pet. They would whisper when she raised her hand to answer questions. Of course she knows everything. That's all they do, study all day long. During lunch period, Maya sat alone at her usual table near the library entrance. She opened her lunchbox, and the familiar aroma of her mother's home cooking wafted up, dumplings and stir-fried vegetables. Once she had been proud of her mother's cooking, but now she felt self-conscious about the weird smell, as Ashley had once loudly proclaimed. "Hey look, she's eating with chopsticks again," Maya heard Brittany's voice carry across the cafeteria. "Don't they know what forks are where she comes from?" Maya's hands shook as she quickly packed away her lunch, her appetite gone. She pulled out her sketchbook instead. Drawing had become her refuge, the one place where she could still feel like herself. As her pencil moved across the paper, creating delicate lines that formed into a peaceful landscape, she felt some of her anxiety melt away. But even this solace was short-lived. A shadow fell across her page, and Maya looked up to see Ashley standing there, flanked by her friends. Ashley picked up Maya's sketchbook without asking, flipping through the pages with exaggerated interest. "Wow, you really are good at copying things," Ashley said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I guess that's what you people do best, right? Copy everything." Maya reached for her sketchbook, but Ashley held it just out of reach. "Please give it back," Maya said quietly, hating how small her voice sounded. "Oh, sorry, I didn't understand what you said," Ashley mocked, mimicking a stereotypical accent. "Your English is so bad." Maya felt tears pricking at her corners of her eyes. She had been born in Minnesota, just like Ashley. She spoke perfect English, just like Ashley. But none of that seemed to matter. After what felt like an eternity, Ashley dropped the sketchbook back on the table and walked away, her friends trailing behind her like a giggling shadow. Maya carefully smoothed out the bent pages, trying to fix what Ashley had crumpled. That afternoon in math class, Maya scored the highest on their algebra test, again. As the teacher handed back the papers, praising Maya's perfect score, she could feel the glares burning into her back. When class ended, she rushed to pack up her things, but she wasn't fast enough. "Hey Maya," Ashley called out sweetly as they left the classroom. "Since you're so smart, maybe you can help me with my homework." "Oh wait, you probably charge for that, right?" "Like one of those tutoring services your kind runs?" Maya hurried past them, fighting back tears. She didn't stop until she reached the girls' bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and finally let the tears fall. She pulled out her phone, thinking about texting her mother, but stopped herself. Her parents had enough to worry about with their busy jobs. Besides, what could they do? The final bell couldn't come soon enough. As Maya waited for her mother's car in the pickup area, she overheard Ashley talking to some boys from their grade. "Did you see what she was wearing today? My grandmother has curtains that look better than that." More laughter. Maya pulled her jacket tighter around herself, even though it wasn't cold. The jacket had been a gift from her mother, who had been so proud to buy it from a nice department store. Now Maya wondered if it really did look as terrible as Ashley said. When her mother's car finally pulled up, Maya practically dove inside, grateful for the safety of the familiar space. The car smelled like her mother's jasmine perfume mixed with the green tea she always kept in a thermos for her long hospital shifts. "How was your day, sweetheart?" her mother asked, smiling tiredly after her long shift at the hospital. "Fine," Maya said quietly, staring out the window. "Just fine." As they drove home, Maya watched the familiar streets pass by, wondering how much longer she could handle this. The worst part wasn't the obvious insults or the mocking laughter. It was the constant, gnawing feeling that no matter what she did, no matter how well she performed in school or how kind she tried to be, she would always be seen as different, as less, as someone who didn't belong. But as they pulled into their driveway, Maya caught a glimpse of her father through the living room window, probably already preparing dinner since her mother had worked late. The sight reminded her of his words from years ago, "Being different is a superpower." She just wished she could feel powerful right now, instead of feeling like she wanted to disappear. The autumn evening was unusually warm as Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror, trying to gather courage. The freshman homecoming dance was supposed to be a magical night, at least that's what all the movies said. She smoothed down her dark blue dress, a modest but pretty choice that her mother had helped her pick out. The color reminded her of the night sky, and tiny silver beads along the neckline sparkled like stars when she moved. Maya hadn't planned on going to the dance at all. The thought of spending an entire evening in the same space as Ashley and her friends made her stomach twist into knots. But then something unexpected had happened. Ryan Chen, no relation, despite sharing the same last name, had asked her to go with him. Ryan was new to the school, having just moved from California, and he seemed genuinely nice. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her mother said from the doorway, smiling warmly. She came into the room carrying a small jewelry box. "I have something for you." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a butterfly charm, a gift from her grandmother before they'd left China. Maya's eyes welled up as her mother fastened it around her wrist. The butterfly caught the light, sending tiny reflections dancing across her wall. "Remember," her mother said softly, "butterflies are survivors. They go through the hardest transformations but emerge more beautiful and stronger than ever." The school gym had been transformed with twinkling lights and silver streamers. Music pulsed through the speakers as Maya walked in, scanning the crowd for Ryan. She spotted him near the punch bowl, looking handsome in a black suit. Their eyes met, and he smiled, making his way over to her. "You made it," he said, handing her a cup of punch. "I was worried you might change your mind." Maya took a sip, trying to calm her nerves. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied softly. They talked for a while, and Maya found herself starting to relax. Ryan was easy to talk to, and he seemed genuinely interested in her stories about art and her family's traditions. For the first time in months, she felt like maybe things could be different at school. That's when she noticed Ashley and her friends huddled together, glancing in her direction and giggling. They were all holding their phones, which wasn't unusual, but something about their expressions made Maya's skin prickle with unease. "Want to dance?" Ryan asked, gesturing toward the dance floor where other couples were swaying to a slow song. Maya hesitated, but nodded. As they walked to the dance floor, she could feel more eyes on them. Ashley's group had grown larger, with several other students joining them, all watching expectantly. The music swelled, and Ryan placed his hands on her waist. Maya's heart was racing, but not from excitement anymore. Something felt wrong. Ryan's grip was too loose, his smile too fixed. She could hear whispers and barely suppressed laughter from the growing crowd around them. Then it happened. Ryan stepped back abruptly, his face twisting into a cruel smirk. "Did you really think I'd want to dance with someone like you?" he said loudly, his voice carrying over the music. "I mean, look at you." The gym seemed to freeze. Maya stood there, unable to move, as laughter erupted around her. Phones were everywhere, recording her humiliation. Ashley stepped forward, her perfectly made-up face glowing with triumph. "Oh my God, you actually thought he liked you." Ashley's voice dripped with fake sympathy. "That's so cute. We had to explain to Ryan how desperate you were, following him around like a lost puppy. He felt so bad for you, he agreed to help us out." Maya's vision blurred with tears. She looked at Ryan, who was now standing with Ashley's group, all of them laughing. The butterfly bracelet felt heavy on her wrist. "I mean, seriously," Ashley continued, her phone pointed directly at Maya's face. "Did you think anyone here would actually want to date someone who looks like you? This isn't one of your weird foreign movies." The words hit Maya like physical blows. She could hear people snickering, see the phones recording everything, feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. The pretty blue dress felt like it was suffocating her. Unable to bear it any longer, Maya turned and ran. She pushed through the gym doors, tears streaming down her face, the sound of laughter following her down the hallway. She didn't stop running until she reached the parking lot, where she collapsed onto a bench, her whole body shaking with sobs. With trembling hands, she pulled out her phone and called her father. She couldn't bring herself to explain what had happened. She just begged him to come get her. Something in her voice must have told him how serious it was, because he didn't ask questions. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, Butterfly," he said softly. While she waited, Maya could see her phone lighting up with notifications. The videos were already being shared across social media. Her humiliation would live forever online, viewed and shared by people she didn't even know. Her father found her still sitting on the bench, clutching her mother's butterfly bracelet. Without a word, he wrapped his coat around her shoulders and led her to the car. The drive home was silent, but he kept reaching over to squeeze her hand gently. That night, Maya lay in bed, still in her beautiful blue dress, as her parents spoke in hushed voices in the hallway. She could hear her mother crying softly and her father's low, angry voice as they discussed what to do. Maya stared at her ceiling, watching the shadows from passing cars dance across it. The butterfly bracelet lay on her nightstand, its silver wings catching the streetlight. She thought about her mother's words about butterflies and transformation, about surviving hard times and emerging stronger. In that moment, something inside Maya changed. The pain was still there, raw and burning, but alongside it was something else. A determination she didn't know she possessed. She couldn't stay at this school, not after this. But she also couldn't let them win, couldn't let them break her spirit completely. As another notification lit up her phone, Another share, another comment, another laugh at her expense. Maya made a decision. She would leave this school, but she wouldn't hide. She would transform this pain into something else, something powerful. She reached for her sketchbook and began to draw. On the page, a butterfly emerged, not delicate and pretty like the charm on her bracelet, but strong and fierce, its wings made of steel and fire. Below it, she wrote in careful letters, "This is not the end of my story." Outside her window, the night sky was the same deep blue as her dress, studded with stars that seemed to shine with quiet determination. Tomorrow would be hard, but tomorrow would also be different. Tomorrow would be the first day of her transformation. The halls of Riverside High School felt different. Maya walked through them with her head held high, her butterfly bracelet catching the morning light. It had been 3 months since the homecoming incident, and her transfer to this new school had marked the beginning of something unexpected, not just an escape, but a complete transformation. Here, the diversity was striking. Students of all backgrounds filled the corridors, their voices mixing in a chorus of different languages and accents. On her first day, Maya had stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed by the change. That's when she met Lily, a Filipino-American student who would become her closest friend. "You look lost," Lily had said with a warm smile, her dark eyes twinkling. "Don't worry. Everyone feels that way at first. Come sit with us at lunch." Us turned out to be a group of students who called themselves the Cultural Alliance. They met during lunch periods, sharing stories, food, and experiences. For the first time, Maya found herself surrounded by people who understood what it felt like to be different, who celebrated rather than mocked their unique backgrounds. Today, Maya sat at their usual table, spreading out her art supplies. She was working on posters for their upcoming diversity awareness event. Her drawings had evolved, no longer just quiet landscapes, but bold statements about identity and belonging. The butterfly from that terrible night had become her signature symbol, appearing in her artwork as a reminder of strength and transformation. "Those look amazing," said Daniel, an Indian-American student who led the debate team. He picked up one of her completed posters, admiring the intricate design. "You should totally start an art Instagram account." Maya hesitated. Social media still made her nervous after what happened at her old school. The videos of that homecoming night were still out there somewhere, but she refused to let that define her anymore. "You know what? Maybe I will," she said, surprising herself with her confidence. She looked down at her latest drawing. A powerful piece showing hands of different skin tones releasing butterflies into the sky. Someone out there might need to see this. That evening, with Lily's help, Maya set up her art account. Her hands trembled slightly as she posted her first piece, the steel and fire butterfly she'd drawn on that painful night, now reimagined with words of empowerment woven through its wings. What happened next was beyond anything she could have imagined. Within days, her artwork started gaining attention. Other students who had faced similar experiences began reaching out, sharing their stories in her comments section. Maya found herself responding to each one, offering words of encouragement and understanding. During one of the Cultural Alliance meetings, their faculty advisor, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed Maya's growing influence. "You've started something important here," she said, gesturing to the group of students gathered around Maya's latest artwork. "Have you ever thought about speaking at our school assembly?" The old Maya would have declined immediately, too afraid to stand in front of a crowd. But this Maya, the one who had emerged from that horrible night stronger and more determined, found herself nodding. I think I'd like that," she said slowly. "But I want to do more than just talk. I want to show them something." Over the next few weeks, Maya worked tirelessly on her presentation. She combined her artwork with stories, not just her own, but those shared by others who had reached out to her online. Her mother helped her practice in their living room, while her father offered suggestions on how to make her message clearer and stronger. The morning of the assembly, Maya stood backstage, clutching her note cards. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of hundreds of students filling the auditorium. Lily squeezed her hand encouragingly. "Remember," Lily whispered, "you're not just speaking for yourself anymore." Maya touched her butterfly bracelet and stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright, but she could see faces in the audience, some curious, some indifferent, some already moved by the artwork displayed on the screen behind her. 3 months ago," she began, her voice clear and steady. I thought being different was something to be ashamed of. I let others make me believe that my skin color, my culture, my very identity were things to hide. As she spoke, sharing her journey from victim to advocate, Maya could see her words hitting home. Students who usually dozed through assemblies sat up straighter. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others nodded in recognition of experiences too similar to their own. When she finished, the applause was deafening. But more important than the applause were the conversations that followed. Students approached her throughout the day, sharing their own stories, asking how they could get involved. The Cultural Alliance's membership doubled, then tripled. That night, as Maya updated her now popular art account with photos from the assembly, she received a message that made her pause. It was from a student at her old school, someone she didn't know personally. "I saw what happened to you at homecoming," the message read. "I was there, and I didn't say anything. I just watched and even laughed a little. I felt horrible about it ever since. Your artwork and your words today made me realize how much damage silence can do. I want to do better. Can you teach me how?" Maya sat back in her chair, feeling the weight of this moment. She thought about how far she'd come from that tearful night in the parking lot. Her hand moved to her butterfly bracelet, touching it gently as she began to type her response. "Change begins with understanding," she wrote. "And understanding begins with listening to each other's stories. Here's mine." As she shared her story once again, Maya realized that her mother had been right about butterflies. They don't just survive their transformation, they make the world more beautiful because of it. And now, through her art and her words, she was helping others spread their wings too. Spring of senior year bloomed with possibility. Maya sat in her bedroom, surrounded by college acceptance letters, including one from Stanford University that had arrived that morning. Her art Instagram account, now with over 100,000 followers, displayed her latest piece, a mural she designed for Riverside High's main hallway, celebrating diversity and resilience. "I can't believe it's really happening," Maya said to Lily, who was sprawled on her bed, helping her sort through scholarship offers. They'd both been accepted to Stanford, their dream school, but Maya's full-ride scholarship had come with something extra, an opportunity to develop a nationwide anti-bullying program focusing on racial sensitivity. "Of course it's happening," Lily replied, grinning. "You're basically famous now. Did you see how many schools downloaded your cultural awareness curriculum?" Maya glanced at her laptop, where another email notification had just popped up. Another school district wanted her to speak at their teacher training day. Her simple presentation from that first school assembly had grown into something much bigger, a comprehensive program that was now being adopted by schools across the country. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez, "Turn on Channel 5 News now." Maya grabbed her remote, and suddenly her own face filled the screen. It was footage from last week's Youth Leadership Conference, where she'd given the keynote speech. The reporter was talking about her journey from bullied student to national advocate, highlighting her work in promoting inclusive education. And in a surprising turn of events, the reporter continued, "The viral video that once caused this young activist so much pain has become a powerful teaching tool in her anti-bullying workshops, demonstrating the real impact of discriminatory behavior." Maya's mother appeared in the doorway, wiping happy tears from her eyes. "Your grandmother in China just called," she said softly. "She saw you on the international news channel. She's so proud, Butterfly." The butterfly bracelet still adorned Maya's wrist, now joined by colorful friendship bracelets from students she'd met during her speaking tours. Each one represented a story shared, a connection made, a life touched by her message. Later that afternoon, Maya headed to the community center where she ran weekly art therapy sessions for kids who'd experienced bullying. Today's group was larger than usual. Word had spread about the safe space she created. "Remember," she told the circle of young faces looking up at her, "we're not just making art. We're telling our stories, and every story matters." As the kids began drawing, Maya moved among them, offering encouragement and gentle guidance. She paused beside a quiet girl named Rachel, who was drawing a figure standing alone, surrounded by darkness. "That's how I felt too," Maya said softly, pulling up a chair. "Want to add something to show where you want to go from here?" Rachel hesitated, then reached for a yellow pencil. Slowly, she began adding light breaking through the darkness. Maya smiled, remembering her own journey from darkness to light. After the session, Maya checked her email again. The TEDx talk she'd given last month had been selected as an editor's pick and would be featured on the main TED platform. Her inbox was flooded with messages from viewers who'd been moved by her story. One message in particular caught her eye. It was from a teacher at her old school, Pine Valley Middle School. "Your story has created waves of change here," the teacher wrote. "After everything that happened, we've completely revamped our approach to bullying prevention. Your old classmates have seen your success, and many have reached out asking how they can make amends and become part of the solution. Would you consider coming back to speak? Not for them, but for the current students who need to hear your message." Maya sat with that email for a long time, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. 3 years ago, she'd run from that school in tears. Now she had the power to return on her own terms, to turn that place of pain into another platform for change. "I'll do it," she typed finally. "But I want to bring my student advisory board with me." The student advisory board was her latest project, a group of young people from different backgrounds who helped shape her anti-bullying curriculum. Together, they were working on a new initiative, a mentorship program pairing high school students with middle schoolers to promote cultural understanding from an early age. That evening during family dinner, Maya shared her decision to return to Pine Valley. Her father reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You know what I see when I look at you now?" he asked. "I see someone who didn't just survive being different, you've shown others how to celebrate their differences too." Maya's mother added, "Remember when you used to hide your lunch because the other kids made fun of our food? Look at you now, organizing those international food festivals at school. You've turned everything they tried to use against you into something beautiful." After dinner, Maya retreated to her art studio, once her bedroom, now transformed into a space where she created both artwork and change. Her walls were covered with letters from students who'd found their voice through her program, photos from workshops she'd led, and newspaper clippings chronicling her impact. She pulled out a fresh canvas and began to paint. The butterfly had evolved in her artwork, just as she had evolved in life. Now it was often accompanied by other symbols of transformation and growth, creating complex pieces that told stories of pain, resilience, and triumph. As she worked, Maya thought about the journey ahead. Stanford would open new doors, give her platforms to reach even more people. The anti-bullying curriculum would continue to spread, hopefully preventing others from experiencing what she had endured. But more importantly, it would help those who were suffering now to find their own strength, their own voice, their own way to transform pain into purpose. Her phone lit up with another notification. Someone had shared her latest post. A simple message written over one of her butterfly drawings. "Your differences are your strengths. Your story matters. Your pain can become your power." Maya smiled, adding another stroke of color to her canvas. The butterfly she was painting seemed to glow from within, its wings made of shattered glass that caught and reflected light in unexpected ways. Just like her own broken pieces had become something beautiful and strong. Life has a way of coming full circle. Ashley Thompson learned this lesson on a crisp autumn morning as she sat in her university's career center, staring at her laptop screen in disbelief. Her dream internship at a prestigious marketing firm had just been rescinded. The reason? An old social media post from high school had resurfaced, a video that she'd almost forgotten about, but the internet never did. The video of Maya at the homecoming dance had taken on a new life in recent years. What was once shared as a cruel joke had become a powerful example in anti-bullying campaigns across the country. As Maya's influence grew, people began to dig deeper into the story, identifying and calling out those involved in the incident. Ashley closed her laptop, her hands shaking slightly. This wasn't the first opportunity she'd lost because of her past actions. Several companies had withdrawn their offers after discovering her involvement in what was now widely considered a textbook case of racist bullying. Her former friends had faced similar consequences. Brittany had lost her position on her college's student council, and Katie's application to study education had been rejected. That evening, Ashley sat in her dorm room, scrolling through Maya's professional website. The scared girl from high school was unrecognizable in the poised young woman who now gave speeches at international conferences and advised school districts on inclusion policies. Maya's latest art series, titled From Shadows to Light, was being featured in galleries across the country. Ashley clicked on one of Maya's interviews. The goal isn't to punish past mistakes, Maya was saying. It's to learn from them and create real change. Everyone has the capacity to grow and become better, but first, they have to acknowledge the harm they've caused and take responsibility for making things right. Those words hit Ashley hard. For years, she tried to distance herself from what she'd done, treating it as just typical high school drama. But now, watching her future opportunities slip away, she finally understood the true weight of her actions. With trembling fingers, Ashley opened her email and began to type. Dear Maya, you probably never expected to hear from me, and you have every right to delete this email without reading further. But I need to say something that I should have said years ago. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. Miles away, in her Stanford dorm room, Maya read Ashley's email. Her butterfly bracelet caught the light as she scrolled through the lengthy message of apology and regret. Ashley had attached links to posts she'd made on her social media accounts, publicly acknowledging her past behavior and apologizing to Maya and others she hurt. I know I can't undo what I did, Ashley wrote, but I want to learn how to be part of the solution. I've been following your work, and I see now how much damage bullying and discrimination cause. If there's any way I can help prevent others from making the same mistakes I did, I want to do that. Maya sat back, thinking about her own journey. Her latest project was a series of workshops called Breaking the Cycle, focusing on reforming bullying behavior through education and empathy. She'd been looking for someone who could speak from the perspective of a former bully who'd learned and changed. After careful consideration, Maya replied, Dear Ashley, thank you for your email. You're right, you can't undo the past, but you can help shape the future. If you're serious about making amends, I have a proposition for you. 2 months later, Ashley stood nervously before a room full of middle school students. She was participating in one of Maya's workshops, sharing her story not as a villain, but as someone learning to take responsibility for their actions and work toward positive change. I thought being popular meant having power over others, Ashley told the silent room. I used that power to hurt someone because she was different from me. I didn't understand then that real strength comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. From the back of the room, Maya watched. She hadn't personally attended Ashley's first speaking engagement, but the organizers had sent her videos. Seeing the genuine remorse and desire for change in her former bully, Maya had decided to come see for herself. The students were riveted as Ashley described how her actions had followed her into adulthood, affecting her opportunities and relationships. But more importantly, she talked about how confronting her past behavior had led to personal growth and a commitment to fighting discrimination. After the session, Maya approached Ashley. It was their first face-to-face meeting since high school. The moment was heavy with unspoken emotions. Thank you for coming, Ashley said quietly. I know it couldn't have been easy. Maya touched her butterfly bracelet, a gesture that had become automatic when she needed strength. Change isn't supposed to be easy, she replied. But it is possible. That evening, Maya updated her blog with a new post. Today, I witnessed something powerful, the transformation of someone who once caused pain into someone working to heal it. It reminded me that the cycle of hurt can be broken, but only if we're brave enough to face our past actions and committed enough to work toward real change. The post quickly went viral, sparking discussions about forgiveness, accountability, and the possibility of redemption. More former bullies began reaching out, asking how they could make amends and join the movement for positive change. As Maya drove home from the workshop, she thought about how far they'd all come. The butterfly effect was real. One small action could create waves of change that reached far beyond its origin. Her pain had led to purpose, and now, even those who had caused that pain were becoming part of the healing process. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. Remember what I always said about butterflies? They don't just transform themselves, they help pollinate flowers, creating beauty everywhere they go. You've done the same, butterfly. You've turned pain into purpose, and now you're helping others transform too. Maya smiled, thinking about the next phase of her work. The journey wasn't over. There were still minds to change, hearts to open, and bridges to build. But now she knew that transformation was possible, not just for the bullied, but for the bullies too. Every story of change, every person who chose to do better, was another step toward the world she dreamed of creating. 10 years had passed since that life-changing homecoming dance. Maya stood at the podium of a national education conference, looking out at a sea of eager faces. Her butterfly bracelet caught the spotlight as she adjusted the microphone, its silver wings now worn smooth from years of nervous touches and moments of needed strength. When I was 15, she began, I thought my story was about pain, about being different, about wanting to disappear. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience. But I was wrong. My story was about finding strength, about turning pain into purpose, and most importantly, about helping others do the same. The conference hall was packed with educators, administrators, and students from across the country. They had come to hear about the remarkable success of Maya's inclusion program, now implemented in over 1,000 schools nationwide. But more than that, they had come to witness the power of transformation. In the front row sat her parents, their hair now touched with gray, but their eyes still bright with pride. Next to them was Lily, still her best friend after all these years, now running her own youth advocacy organization. And there, a few rows back, was Ashley, who had become one of the program's most effective speakers on bullying prevention. 10 years ago, Maya continued, a video of me being humiliated went viral. Today, that same video is used in our training programs, not to shame anyone, but to show that change is possible, that we can transform our darkest moments into our greatest purpose. She clicked to the next slide, showing statistics from schools that had adopted her program. Bullying incidents had dropped by 70%. Student reports of feeling safe to be themselves had increased by 85%. But the numbers that meant the most to Maya were the stories behind them, the lives changed, the confidence built, the bridges created between different communities. After her speech during the break, Maya found herself in a quiet corner of the conference center. She was looking at an art installation, a collaborative piece created by students from across the country. Hundreds of paper butterflies, each carrying a message of hope or transformation, formed a stunning rainbow of colors. Ms. Chen. A quiet voice interrupted her thoughts. Maya turned to see a young girl, maybe 13, clutching a copy of Maya's recently published book, Butterfly Effect. Transform Your Pain into Power. My mom was one of your first students, the girl said, her eyes bright with emotion. The one who wrote to you about being bullied at her school. You helped her find her voice. Now she's my school principal, and she makes sure everyone feels welcome there. Maya felt tears prick at her corners of her eyes as she signed the book. These moments, these reminders of how far the ripples of change could reach, made everything worthwhile. Later that evening, Maya hosted a special dinner. Around the table sat people from every chapter of her story. Her parents, Lily, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had first encouraged her to speak up, Ashley, who had become an unexpected ally in the fight against bullying, and representatives from her student advisory board. I want to share something with all of you, Maya said, standing up. She pulled out her old sketchbook, the one Ashley had once mocked in the cafeteria. Its pages were worn now, but the drawings inside still held their power. She turned to that first fierce butterfly she had drawn on the night of the homecoming dance. This butterfly was born from pain, she explained, but it led to something beautiful. She revealed her latest project, a nationwide art therapy program for bullied students, funded by a major foundation grant. And now it's going to help others find their wings too. Ashley wiped tears from her eyes. I never imagined that my worst mistake would lead to something so meaningful, she said softly. You didn't just forgive me, Maya. You showed me how to become someone worth forgiving. Mrs. Rodriguez raised her glass. To Maya, who taught us that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better and helping others do the same. Maya's mother reached over and touched her daughter's bracelet, the same one she'd given her before that fateful dance. You know, she said, when I gave you this, I hoped it would give you strength. I never imagined you would give that strength to so many others. After dinner, Maya walked through the quiet conference center, looking at the preparations for tomorrow's Youth Leadership Summit. Teenagers from across the country would be arriving, each with their own stories of struggle and hope. She paused by a window, looking at her reflection. The scared girl from that homecoming dance was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned that differences weren't weaknesses, they were superpowers. Her father had been right about that all along. Her phone buzzed with a message from a school district in another state, asking about implementing her program. As she typed her response, she smiled at how far technology had come. The same tools that had once spread hurt were now spreading healing. That night, in her hotel room, Maya finished a new piece of art. It showed a single butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, but its shadow contained hundreds of smaller butterflies, each taking flight. Below it, she wrote words that had become her life's mission. Your story isn't over when the pain ends. It's only beginning when you use that pain to help others heal. We are all butterflies in waiting, ready to transform, ready to fly, ready to show others that their differences make them beautiful too. As she prepared for bed, Maya thought about all the lives touched by her journey, the bullied students who had found their voice, the bullies who had learned to change, the communities that had been transformed. Her mother had been right about butterflies being survivors. But she had learned something even more important. They were also creators of change, bringing beauty wherever they went. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories, new opportunities for transformation. But Maya was ready. She had long since learned that the end of one story was just the beginning of another. And as long as there were people needing to find their wings, she would be there to help them fly.